The European Parliament's plenary session continues today in Strasbourg with the Commission President Ursula von der Leyen joining a debate on the Middle East later this morning. But there's also plenty of talk about the EU's long-term budget, which is currently under negotiation. For more, we can cross over to Strasbourg now and to our correspondent Vincenzo Genovese. Vincenzo, welcome back to the programme. Yesterday, we know the Parliament adopted its own position on the EU's long-term budget, which runs for 7 years from 2028. Tell us more.
Good morning from Strasbourg. The MEPs want more money. As expected in the EU's 7-year budget, they are calling for a 10% increase compared to the proposal put forward by the European Commission last July, bringing it up to over 2 trillion euro, which is 1.27% of the EU's GNI. Why this increase? Because they are seeking more funding for defense, competitiveness, strategic priorities, but without cutting allocations for agriculture, fisheries, cohesion policy, or programs such as Erasmus. So this is an ambitious target and will very likely clash with EU member states, which are always reluctant to increase their national contributions to the EU budget. Tough negotiations between MEPs and national governments are expected in the next months. Each side will try to push its own priority, and who better than Sophie Wilmès to discuss it? She is an MEP, she is the Vice President of the European Parliament, but she was Prime Minister of Belgium. Good morning, welcome.
Good morning.
Will the European Parliament bow to the pressure of the member states at the end, like it was in the previous budget talks?
Well, we are at the beginning of the discussion, and it's normal that everybody is playing a role. I had the chance to sit in both situations, in the Parliament side, but also at the Council side. It's very normal, and it's usual that the member states are pushing for a budget a little bit down, while the Parliament is pushing for more. The reality is that we are facing a lot of new challenges. You talk about it, competitiveness, our autonomical strategy, but we're also having challenges on security and defense, and those requires more money for sure.
Moving on to today's agenda of the European Parliament, there is an important vote on the rule of law report. You have worked on this file. Can you tell us which member states are, let's say, the bad kids in Europe now?
So actually the report of the European Parliament, we try not to name and shame. We were really focused on transversal and horizontal issues. Of course, we could not make a report without speaking about Hungary. That's totally normal. What is very special this time is that we speak about an integrated cycle for the rule of law, which is something that I have carried for more than a year now and is now a reality in this report.
As you mentioned Hungary, and as Peter Magyar is in Brussels today, can the new government put the things back on track in Hungary?
You know, it's much more difficult to put things back on track than to dismantle rule of law, and we've seen that everywhere. We are very hopeful for this new team and this new government to put things on track. They say they will, and I think that we need to support that.
Today on the agenda there is also a debate on anti-Semitism, which seems to be in rise in Europe. Do you see this it's connected to Israel's geopolitical agenda?
So it doesn't seem to be rising in Europe. It is rising in Europe, and it is definitely rising since the attack of the 7th of October. What we need to make very a cautious distinction between the government in Israel and the Jewish community. And whatever a minister or a government does not excuse anti-Semitic action. And this is something that we need to tackle now. There is a roadmap and there is a strategy for anti-Semitism from the European Commission. We wanted to update it since it was born 2 years before the attack.
And last question, as you are a vice chair of the EU-US relation committee, do you think that the EU should do or can do without the US?
I think that Europe should do with Europe and does not prevent it from doing with the US, but also other partners. But what is very important regarding the United States is that we are talking to each other as equal partner and not as a big brother against the little brother or the little sister. That's not the way I see things.